Hello, today we're going to complete our volume review, which is the beginning of our new unit. So volume is the amount of three-dimensional space occupied by an object. Volume can also be referred to as capacity. So let's fill those in. 3D or three-dimensional space occupied by an object, and volume can be referred to as capacity. How much an object can hold. So when we're working with volume or area, we often use what's called formulas. So this is a New York State exam reference sheet, and I want you to notice that it has three area formulas, and those are important for volume. And circle has also a circumference formula. Then you're going to notice we're going to be working with cylinders, spheres, and cones, but there's a general prism formula. So let's talk about this. V for volume. This big B is for the base, which is the area of the prism that we're working with. This also works for a cylinder times the height. So when we start with volume, we're trying to find the area of the base that we're working with. And a cylinder has the area of a circle as a base. So the circle is a base. So you notice that the area formula for a circle is pi r squared, and sure enough, volume formula has the area of a circle times the height. And we'll discuss the rest of these formulas as I get to them, but we're going to start out with this general prism formula. So turn to the next page, please. For the following prisms, we'll use the general prism formula, which is we just discussed. Volume equals BH, where B, capital B, is the area of the base of the prism, and height is H. And it's the height or length of the prism based on orientation. For each prism, be sure to show the formula, the substitution, the measurements to replace the variables, and the answer including unit of measure. So for instance, if we're working with centimeters, inches, feet. So I also want to mention that some of these prisms we're working with have their own specific formula. For instance, if we're working with a rectangular prism, which is this one, we could also, and you may have also used this in the past, we could write volume equals length times width times height. And we're actually going to do that when we start with our formula, the general formula. So if we start with this general formula, BH, what we're trying to find is the area of the base, and so in this case it's a rectangle. So here's the area of the base, and because it looks more like a parallelogram than it does a rectangle, you can see you being confused, but we're working with a rectangle, so that's actually the length times the width, just like we had here. So we're going to need to take 14 times 6. So we are taking the length times the width. And then we want to use the height, which in this case comes off the ground. So that's 8. So our volume formula and our substitution for this particular rectangular prism is 14 times 6 times 8. So pause and use your calculator and find this volume measurement. And hopefully you have volume equals 672, and the unit of measure is feet. And when we work with volume, we mentioned it's three-dimensional, so we're going to put a 3, or we could say cubic feet. So that's how many cubes are inside this prism. So this next one, they don't give us a clear. This one was it gave us like a little shaded area, kind of see-through, so we could see that this is a rectangle. But this one is also a rectangular prism. So based on what we did, we're going to use this volume formula, again, the general formula. So would you please write what dimensions you need for the area, which is a rectangle, times the height. Would you show, please, the substitution? And when you're done, replay the video. All right, and here's the numbers you should have had. And because of the commutative property says that when we're multiplying, order doesn't matter, you actually could have these numbers in different order. Order doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter what we call the height or the length or the width, because we're going to multiply all three of these, and order doesn't matter. So pause, use your calculator, and please find the volume. And the volume equals 162. In this case, the unit of measure is kilometers. And again, because we're working with volume, that's to the third power, or we could say cubic kilometers. Speaking of a cube, the next prism we're talking about is a cube, meaning all of the sides are the same length. And this again has a specific formula for a cube. You may have seen it before. It's side times side times side, or side to the third power. But we can use this general formula for all prisms, which is volume equals base times height. And in this case, the base is a square, and so we want to find the area of a square, so we would say side times side. In this case, it's 2 7/10 times 2 7/10. And then the height is going to be the same measurement. So would you please pause and find out what the volume is using those numbers? And the volume is 19 683 thousandths. And then again, we need our unit of measure, which is meters to the third power. Now, yesterday we worked on our exponents lesson, so you may remember how to do this. If you have your scientific calculator, you would put 2 7/10 in the calculator, you would raise it to the third power, and you should get the same answer. So number 4 is just a description of a cube, but you have all the information you need. A cube has a height of 6 centimeters. What is the volume? So would you please take a moment and work on this and then look back at the answer. And you could have used in the general formula, or because of the cube being unique, all the measurements are the same, you could have chosen to use the specific formula if you choose. So now let's go on to the next page. All right, this next prism is a triangular prism, and let's just recall what makes a prism a prism. A prism has two same bases. In this case, it's a triangle, and all the other faces are rectangles. And you may think that the base is the rectangle that it's sitting on, but it's not. What makes this a prism are the two triangles. So this is called a triangular prism. And so we're going to start with the general formula, volume equals base times height. But the base is this triangle. And so recall here, we need the formula for the area of a triangle. And that is officially 1/2 times little b, which is talking about this line, that measurement, times height. And that height is referring to the height of the triangle. So all of this has to do with the triangle. And you can also use it as base times height divided by 2, which is my preferred way. So I'm going to use those dimensions. And then this is kind of tricky here, the height, because this is not coming off the ground because of the orientation, the way it's sitting. I really need then the length, which in this case is this part. So let's put that all together. So we're going to show V for volume, and we're going to replace the little b with 6, and we're going to place the little h, the height of the triangle. All of this information is coming from the triangle, and we'd have to divide that in 2, and then we're going to multiply that times 12. So if this was standing upright, this would be easier to see that that's the height. So let's decipher this. We're going to take 6 times 4, which is 24, and divide it by 2. So I'm going to move this information up here. I'm kind of out of room. We're going to write volume equals, and 24 divided by 2 is going to be 12. And then we're going to take it times the height of 12. So pause and use your calculator and replay when you're ready. So this is volume equals 144, and we'll say inches to the third power. So you can see I kind of borrowed a little bit of the space for this other triangular prism. I'd like you to try that. Again, we're going to start with this general formula, recalling that the base is actually the area of the triangle. The big B is the base of the area of the triangle. And I just wanted to call your attention to this particular triangle is a right triangular prism. So you can see the height of the triangle is also one of its legs or one of its sides. So please fill in the formula, and then when you're done, go ahead and look back. Okay, so I know that this is a little bit confusing because we have two heights. The first height is the height of the triangle, and the second height, also we could call the length, is the length of the whole prism. So let's move forward, please. So this says each locker is shaped like a rectangular prism, which has more space. Explain. So would you go ahead and find the volume of each of these lockers? They mentioned the word space. They didn't say volume, but they're talking about capacity, storage, how much it holds, and they mentioned space. So we're looking about how much you can hold inside. So please find the volumes, and then we'll continue. Once you're done figuring out the volume, please refer back to this video. Okay, and now that we've found the volume of the school locker and the volume of the gym locker, we can now answer the question, which one has more storage space? And it says to explain. So as we look at this, it may have been, this school locker was taller, so maybe it looked like it had more storage space, but it was indeed the gym locker. So we could explain that storage space is referring to the volume or capacity. So the gym locker has more storage space at 8,640 cubic inches compared to 7,200 cubic inches. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.